13 Questions by Man Transcending. Manhood in the Digital Age.
Welcome back to another episode of 13 Questions, Second Act Edition. This episode's guest is Ben Walsmith. This is a repeat appearance for Ben. Ben's first episode was episode 049, I believe. And as with me, as always, is Adam Loyal. Adam, how are you?
I am doing great tonight.
Awesome. Happy solstice. We are recording this on the solstice. And we have Ben with us actually for the intro. Ben, what's happening?
Happy to be back. Honored you invited me back.
Well, I'm glad that we have the time to do this. Time is ever present and something that we never ever get back once it's given. That's something that I've learned from doing the show. So thanks for being here. And something that Adam and I have been doing more recently in the show is sharing gratitudes. And with that is the gratitude jar working. So I'll explain the gratitude jar working real quick, and then we'll jump in and share some gratitudes. But the jar working is, since the podcast is value for value, if you do get value out of the conversation and you want to share, express some of that back to us in the form of a monetary donation, then I will write your name in purple ink and put it in this jar I keep on an altar, which is surrounded by tons of cool crystals and stones. And these crystals and stones have various metaphysical properties that help facilitate the heart-brain connection. So it's kind of like a etheric love heart-brain connection generator. So in order to help facilitate the heart and brain connection prior to the interview portion of the show, we like to share something that we're grateful for, something that brings us joy. And my gratitude, we have a jingle, actually. We have a jingle. We got to play the jingle. I almost forgot about the jingle. I can't believe it almost slipped my brain. But yes, we do have a jingle.
Gratitude, 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 oh, gratitude. Gratitude, 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 oh, gratitude.
So my gratitude has to deal with time, and it's specifically the time spent here on 13 Questions over the past year specifically. I think at the beginning of the year, I'd said something along the lines of 2022 is going to be super great year, and it was a lot of fun. We built a lot. I learned a lot. Started off with reality transurfing with Owen Hunt. He did a book club, and then we jumped into the Mark England Enlifted coaching things, where we learned about mental tricks like soft talk and hard talk and a bunch of other cool mind tools that you can use, and tons of great book recommendations and just tons of learning all around. We got to re-interview both Darren and Graham at this point, and we're getting repeat guests now, which is super cool. And so I was just talking to Ben the other day, actually, over the phone, and I was telling him that I was not at the same place even a month ago than I am today, mentally, right? So yeah, so much growth, and time is required for that. So I'm thankful for, I guess, where I am at right now and the time spent with the show and everything in between. So that is my gratitude for this episode. If anybody else wants to go next.
That's awesome to hear, Bill. And I kind of have a couple in mind and kind of a zoomed out overall. I'm grateful for you and Adam for doing this podcast and building this community, having this conversation. I think it's pretty important these days. And watching it grow has been pretty amazing as well. So it's been fun, and I'm grateful to be able to tag along on that. But I guess on a more personal and local level, currently I am grateful for heated seats and warm socks. Winter has come in with a vengeance where I'm at right now, and below zero temps and blizzards on the way. It's going to be interesting.
First day of winter.
Yeah.
Here it comes.
So kind of celebrating the death of the year, right? And when you do just want to be by the fire and reflecting over the last year so you can plan for the new one, right?
Yeah, keeping warm is definitely something that we talked about recently on a previous episode, not too long ago. So it's definitely been a theme. Not so much for Adam though. Adam is our southern correspondent. He's closer to the equator.
I had to turn my air conditioner off before we started the show.
Kill him.
But no, my gratitude's very, very much in line. And it's actually very much split in the same way that yours is, because this time of year, I loved what you said, Bill, about time. It's my favorite thing. It's when you spend time with somebody else, you're giving up the most valuable thing that there is, like a portion of your experience. But this season, like the Halloween through, the end of the year, the new year, it has just a different feeling. So not just the holidays, but this time of the season. And I love that part of the cycle. And man, I'll tell you what, art. Like lately I've been playing a game, and it is such a beautiful game. Every angle from the inside of it, the way that they built it, and it is just so wonderful to be able to go into an experience where like people have built a world to be experienced. And I don't know, it's a very wonderful thing when you can really step into the mind of somebody else, and in not just a done to be done way, but in a very well thought out thing.
Awesome. So that was our gratitude segment. And this, like I said before, this just kind of helps us get into the gratitude space before we delve into the deep questions. And we do have a kind of a new order than the last time you were on, Ben. So we start out with a pretty heavy question. We ended with the last time. So the first one is, what does it mean to be a man in today's world?
Yeah, I knew that was going to be the first question, and thought about it a little bit today. And man, it's hard, right? Because trying to assign a value to just being a man, it's interesting. Much less, current events and what's in the zeitgeist and on identity and things like that. But I had a few words come to mind, but then, tried to look at it from another angle. And, a certain amount of competency certainly is good and just in day-to-day life, so that you can help others without hindering, right? Even if it's changing a tire or something like that. But then, the mindset kind of shifted, and I'm like, well, if you don't know how to do something like that, you're not handy with a wrench or a hammer or whatever it is. Does that make you less of a man? Is there such thing as less or more of, in an individual? It's hard to say.
It is.
I haven't sat with it long enough, to form an opinion, I guess, but it definitely raised a quandary when I started thinking about that kind of thing.
Right. It's like, how do you measure? Like, what are the standards, right?
And there's a lot of things you could say, being the protector, right? But just in my experience, I spent a lot of time in the woods, and I don't know if you've ever seen a mama bear with her cubs, but holy shit, right? Like you don't want to get anywhere near that protector. And so it's I think we all have certain strengths and weaknesses, and that's what makes us so amazing as a species, is we are all so different. And you may be very dexterous in one aspect and a complete, bumbling noob in another, but that I don't know if that makes you better or worse than anyone else.
Right. I love that you brought up the protector aspect though, because I definitely do think that is more of a male archetypal thing. That the warrior archetype to not only do the shadow work within, like I've said before, as a warrior, but to protect honor in yourself and others.
Mm.
So yeah.
But I mean, I guess I can see that transcending gender.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But
So
yeah, I mean,
not just in the natural world either. And I mean, you can. That's where I get a lot of inspiration and clarity of thought is from the natural world and observing it. But it goes all the way down the food chain too. I spent some time in Alaska, and there was something amazing with watching the salmon run and how those adults interact with the nest, because they very much are protecting it the entire time, and it usually exhausts the male first, and they kind of salmon run upstream, spawn, and die. Everybody kind of knows that from elementary school. But one of the things that I witnessed happen a bunch was that female dying on the nest. And that is so that there is some sort of biomass for when those eggs hatch, right? So that final protective sacrifice was female for sure. I think everybody wants to fight for what they believe, so that warrior spirit's in everybody.
oh yeah, 100%. But I do think that when it comes to, I guess, maybe defending it from others, not necessarily the natural way of just how things work out in the wilderness, it would be more of a way to qualify it for a human being. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
As far as like the protection aspect.
Sometimes I do think I spent too much time in the woods and look at everything in that through that lens. And a lot of that shit doesn't fly in town. So, but it is I don't know, especially the warrior spirit. I really meditated on that a lot this year. So it's a forefront of mind.
I know that the bear is a kind of a warrior spirit totem when it comes to protecting in the the mama bear sense, like you were saying before.
Yeah, don't
Yeah.
hurt the bear.
I mean, a lot of folks like the action when it comes to the nature shows about bears, and definitely witnessing a bear fight is something to behold. But most of the time, I've worked a river on Kodiak Island in Alaska, so I've been around as a fishing guide for most of my career, and most of the time they're Lebowski. Like they're just so cool and nothing bothers them. That's what I really admired about them, is nothing fazed them.
But when you poke it, that's when you gotta watch out.
Sometimes they actually, man. Sometimes they just go the other way. Quit bothering me. They don't even pay attention. That's what I mean. That poke the bear thing. I've stumbled upon them being way too close in the woods. I've approached them intentionally. Uh,
Well,
there's a lot of
they're so
stories
apex
there.
that they're
Yeah,
going to win no matter what against anything. So ultimately,
and
you're an annoyance.
yeah,
Do I
and
want to kill you? No, that's annoying.
but you can witness that. The mama bear protector thing is well known, but they are so gentle and so loving at the same time to their young. Um, Even in the way they communicate, it's totally different than how two adult bears interact. They're um, next to one another. They make little cooing sounds, things like that to the young. They're just, I don't know. They're also a favorite animal, spirit animal for sure.
Well, speaking of communicating and mama bear and children, moving on to the second question, what was the most important lesson you learned from your parents?
Ooh. Um, there's a lot. My folks were pretty traditional, so honesty, integrity, a stick to itiveness, maybe even to the that being a detriment, even having the nose to the grindstone longer than you need to, kind of thing. But the honesty and integrity in what you say and do, for sure.
Yeah, that was something that Adam emphasized to me when I first started helping out with the show is honesty. As long as you're honest with the guests and the guests are honest with you and you're, basically just honest all around, right? It's going to have, we're going to have good episodes. We're going to have good conversations. It's going to be worthwhile to listen because nobody's trying to dupe anybody here. We're not trying to, get over on anyone for whatever reason. Question 3, what book has been most influential on your life and why?
Ooh,
I know we asked this one before, but I'm curious to see if
you did, and I remember at the time I said Celestine Prophecy.
I recently read that. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and it is a fun story and lets you in on a few ideas of how the universe operates. And I read it when I was young. I was in high school, 15, 16, somewhere in there. But I recently reread it let's get my time frame right. It was 2 summers ago now. And because my mom still had my copy, I went to visit my folks and saw it sitting there on the shelf, and then she apparently read it and enjoyed it. And there's a sequel. I didn't know there was a sequel, right? So I got to read that too.
Did they make a movie out of it? The sequel?
They may have, yeah. I don't know.
I haven't done that yet.
And I could say a lot of different books. I've read a been on a bit of a spiritual kind of vision quest for a couple of years now, and read a lot of great teachings and ancient texts. And but the one of the books that I always have with me and read almost daily is a dictionary. I happen to have a really old one that's super fun. There's a lot of words we've kind of forgotten. But yeah, I love dictionaries.
That really
Words
is. That's an awesome answer. I mean, it's it's the foundation of language. It's the understanding. It is the components that put it together, the building blocks. Yeah, that's probably should be in way more people's regular reading list.
Well, and if you can find an old one at a flea market or an antique store or something, the one I have now is 1909, and it's great. It really is. There's a way they spoke then that there's an eloquence that isn't necessarily prominent in the vernacular these days, and yeah, it's really fun. Just the way they thought about the words too is interesting.
Wasn't that long ago.
And words are important, right? I don't know if there's the advice question. Yeah, it's coming up, right?
Yeah.
Best advice ever given. One of those, I may have said it last time. I got to be honest with you guys. I didn't listen to my episode, so
It's okay.
if I'm repeating myself, I apologize. But it was a fishing client who sat on the same creek I was talking about in Kodiak Island. He was very quiet, and as a guide, and you're kind of hosting the guest, you're making sure everybody's having a good time. And so I said, "Yeah, he's been quiet. Just want to make sure everything's okay." He's like, "Oh yeah, I just don't like to waste words," and that has always stuck with me. I may disprove that today, but
No, absolutely not. Yeah, is the dictionary old enough to where like the S's, some of the S's are F's, and the words are spelled differently? Because it's super interesting too, just to learn the history of the words too, like how
yeah, I do. I end up doing a lot of internet research after flipping through that old dictionary. So.
And I'm glad that you brought up the Celestine prophecy. I finally got around to reading that, even though I've known about the book for years. This year, specifically because of the show, right? We were keeping that book list. We're keeping it. And one of the things I took away from it, and it kind of ties back into question two, is the control dramas that they talk about in, I don't know, it was one of the further along insights, but the control dramas are how we learn to get energy from the world when we're young, like from our parents. So that those four categories, the poor me, aloof, interrogator, and intimidator control drama, it's very I don't want to say like refreshing, but it's nice to be able to put a label or to be able to identify something and give it a definition, right? Going back to words.
Yeah.
And bring clarity to it so that way you can understand it, process it, and move on, right?
Yeah, and you can also look at that, like go in review. You think about a conversation that stuck with you and see where the person was coming from in hindsight, obviously. But I find, yeah, it's another helpful tool for sure.
And one of the don't waste words would be the best advice ever given to you. So would you modify that at all then? Or I don't want to speak for you, but that was the answer to the next question, right?
Well, no, it's a something that stuck with me,
Okay.
and I've kind of come to think of those moments as prophetic a little bit. So the conversations that stick out in your mind, or something you've always remembered since you were a kid or a teenager or whatever.
Right.
That's the start of the lesson. So, in the idea of we're all one, and made in the image of God and things like that, those conversations, if viewed through a lens of God using someone else as a vessel, right? And in the idea of creating your own reality, and manifestation and things like that. I mean, words are very important, and how you speak, not just to other people but to yourself, will manifest physically in your reality. So
Yeah,
it's
abracadabra.
important. Yeah, I create as I speak. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I learned from talking to Mark England, was kind of the history behind that word and how we get to qualify, the energy through us by our words, of all our thoughts first of all, and then our words. But usually,
Well, and everything is reflected back, right? Um, I mean, that goes to the whole idea of gratitude, right? Maintaining that um, idea and energy as you go on will get reflected back, and are if depending on how you react to the situation, right? If you react poorly and kind of um, send out negativity, that will, in my experience, it's a boomerang, right? So there will be something down the line that isn't the exact same thing, but it smells like it. And if you react the same way again, you're insured another one of those. And I've found gratitude to be exactly the same way, if not more powerful. Um, and kind of had the opportunity to run a pretty amazing experiment on that with I was not in a attitude of gratitude. I couldn't find a lot to be grateful for. um, Again, 2 summers ago, it was August, and ended up getting a job during harvest time at a hop farm. And I've been exploring animism for a while, and decided to say thank you, or specifically the Ho'oponopono prayer, to all the hop vines as I was harvesting. And I ended up touching almost every single vine, and there were 14,000 of them. And the whole thing sort of evolved as the weeks went by as we were harvesting. But expressing gratitude to the plant for giving all that energy so that somebody can make some beer, right? I found that to start uh, boomeranging situations that I was truly grateful for to show up in my life. And then by expressing gratitude sincerely to those um, experiences, it sort of made a perpetual motion machine. And now it keeps coming. And maintaining that idea and that attitude has completely changed my life.
hell yeah, I love that how you said it was gratitude is more powerful, and I think that it is. I mean, okay, so the universe is going to reflect back to you whatever you put out. So if you're putting out shitty vibes, you know what you're going to get. You're going to get back shitty vibes. So you're going to get what you're expecting to get, right? But when you approach it with gratitude, like you were saying, it's so unpredictable. Like you don't know what's going to
Yeah.
get back, and that's because
Well,
gratitude, I think, I mean, it's synonymous with love, right? And love isn't limiting. So
and I started playing around with it actually right before that CAC you and I were at in Utah. And it was a guest on Gray America. Forgive me for not knowing his name, but I mean there's so many to keep track of on that podcast. But um I guess the idea of faking it till you make it, right? And that is a big part of um manifesting your reality, whether you look at um new thought ideas or um even depending on which teaching you're going by, right? But it is assuming that it's already done, and assuming that character as who would that character, hang out with? What would they do today? How would they dress? And you do that, and the universe responds. So with the gratitude thing, it started like if I drop my keys or stub my toe, I'd say thank you instead of damn it. And I'd see little bits of it, right? So then having the opportunity at that farm to speak to each vine and, tell it it's appreciated. It's going to go make great beer, make a bunch of people temporarily very happy.
Good old light beer.
Yeah. And it literally was like putting a turbocharger on my engine. And it just really, I don't know. It was magic for sure.
I'm stealing that. I'm going to start implementing that right away. I like that. A thank you instead of a God damn it. That's a magical reversal of power I like.
Yeah. That reminds me, I dropped my phone on the little white part of my toe, right where it starts becoming nail a few weeks ago. It's like first thing in the morning, right? So of course, I wanted to say, insert curse word here, right? But I didn't say thank you, but at least I didn't curse, right? I was just silent. I was like, okay, I'll move on.
Yep.
Speaking of not wasting words.
Well, and you never know, like butterfly effect, right? Dropping that thing on your toe and you took an extra 3 minutes to get to wherever you were going that day might have saved your life. You never know.
Yeah. The living room is okay.
I mean, a pack of rabid squirrels, you're up in the woods.
All right. Question number 5. What do you willfully ignore?
A few habits that are probably not as beneficial to me as I still smoke cigarettes. I'm fairly unapologetic about it, but it's an interesting monkey, right?
Yeah.
So
for sure. We've been kind of, Adam and I have been having kind of a behind the scenes discussion on tobacco and nicotine also recently.
Well, and they both have benefit, which is the interesting part. It's not all bad, right? Tobacco is a sacred herb. It's very grounding. Nicotine is proving to be a nootropic, right? So I try to be a fairly creative person, and I do find nicotine to be very helpful in writing poetry and painting and things like that. So even just out carving, whittling on a stick, or carving, something, which I'm getting back into these days. I get just having a cigar with your old man, it's pretty cool. Obviously there are downsides, and I think what bothers me is the addiction, not necessarily that I use tobacco, right? But it's the habit.
The dependency. Yeah. Yeah. There are good things you can glean from it. We were debating whether or not we should add tobacco to our gratitude jar altar. We recently crossed the world into the plant kingdom. We were hanging out in the mineral kingdom for a while with all these rocks, but we added some sage, and we used a petrified wood to kind of be the bridge between the two, which was kind of cool. But yeah. Tobacco, like runner up.
It is a very powerful spirit if you want to look at it like that. carries a amazing energy, and is healing to other plant species. I often will offer a bit of tobacco to a tree before I sit down and meditate under it. And in that realm, it's a big spirit. So I don't know. I have ended up since I do smoke tobacco, I've ended up using that as a delivery system for a lot of other herbs, and just recently started smoking blue lotus. Very interesting. I think that would be a good addition to your jar. Actually, that jar working is great work, and this herb, the Egyptians used it to commune with spirit. So, and it is a very interesting herb to use. I mean, obviously you can brew it into a tea, but since I smoke, that delivery system is pretty effective and pretty fast, right?
Is it relatively easy to get a hold of, or do you have to like?
Oh yeah, you'd think it wouldn't be actually after you've smoked it a couple times, but it's you can get it on Etsy or Amazon.
Low Bob's discount tobacco, maybe.
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
I've been looking for it from either a flower farm or an apothecary, an herb shop, for a long time, and I finally just broke down and ordered some on the internet.
Oh, okay. It's amazing what you can find on the internet.
It's amazing.
Well, and I'm
just provide.
yeah. I mean, Bill knows I've been on the road for a couple of years now, and just being a nomad. And now that I've kind of settled into regular human life again, I have an address. So I'm like, well, shit, now I have to get Amazon again. So, and the local apothecary doesn't have it. So otherwise.
Question number 6. What rule do you have for yourself that you never break, and why do you think that it's important?
I remember this one from last time too. It was that there are no rules, is what I said. I still abide by that. But I remembered one from my younger days, and have adopted that into my way of life and practice these days as well. And it's always have fun. I think it's Alan Watts. As the main problem in life is that we take seriously what the gods made for fun, and even if it's not fun. Like I recently took a job in a factory in the wood shop, which not too new to me, but I haven't had a straight job in over 15, maybe we'll say 10, just to be safe, 10 years. And it's altogether new, and it was a little soul crushing, punching a clock all of a sudden. But actually what I do is awesome. I'm having a blast. I'm working with wood, working with all the tools are there that you could ever wish for. And yeah, it's a job, but it's also a mindset on how you view that. So
yeah, I like the your first answer that there are no rules, and for some reason that made me think of the golden rule. But then that made me think of, I think it was Mark Stavish was saying that the golden rule is great, right? But then there's also he who has the gold makes the rules. So, what are your thoughts? Yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
well, I try to abide by the golden rule. Absolutely, I do think that messaging is spot on. I mean, it treat others as you would want to be treated, right? That, I mean, everything falls back to gratitude in my world these days, but it's the same thing, just being nice doesn't cost anything, right? So, he who makes the code go, yeah,
I don't know.
you really are, you're still free. You are free to choose whatever you want, whatever you want to believe, whatever you want to do. There are consequences for choices every time, but you're free to do whatever you want.
Yeah, I think that's what I like about the second half of that. He who has the gold makes the rules, because it reminds you that there are consequences. I think
Mm.
there's a
Well, yeah,
dose of reality.
certainly we do live in a nation of laws. There's probably way too many of them, to be honest, but it's not like we started making up rules for no reason, right? I mean, you do have to function in society. But also, if everybody was just nice to everybody, it'd be a lot easier, right?
Yeah, traffic is a good example. Traffic rules. Being
I mean, what,
traffic.
and it's not just treating. I mean, it is treating others the way you want to be treated, but boil it down to love, right? And the whole, I think it's in the Bible more than likely, that love thy neighbor as thyself, right? I think it seems like a whole lot of people don't love themselves very much,
Yeah, it's
right?
hard
So
to.
that's how we get into these problems in society, and a lot could be brought back just with not just knowing yourself, but being a friend to yourself and loving yourself.
That was what.
Change the relationship with yourself, right?
I mean, it's the most important. Jesus said that was the most important commandment, was to love yourself so that you can then love your neighbor, but yourself first.
Right? Yeah, that guy was full of good shit.
Yeah, he's in the Bible a lot, especially.
I got to read it. I've been reading a lot of other stuff. I did just get a copy off the shelf, mostly to compare it to a couple others I was carrying around already. I like to take the Gideon's Bible when I stay in a hotel, so make them feel like they're doing their job. But yeah, I should read it more.
I've actually had the thought of picking up and reading, going, cover to cover on it, because in all my years, growing up with traditional parents, like I did in Catholic parochial school, like I never read the Bible front to back. Like I've read books, right, but not.
I mean, if you've read Lord of the Rings, you can certainly probably hack the Bible, right? I mean,
right. Okay, so next question. What is your greatest fear? How did you overcome it, if you have?
I don't know if I have. And it's still the same as when was that? You said episode 49. That was a while ago, eh?
Yeah, I think it was 2020.
Yeah.
2020, yeah.
I remember where I was standing. I just don't remember what year it was. That's funny. Yeah, just public speaking, being putting myself out there, so to speak.
Yeah, it's expanding your comfort zone. I mean, it's whether even though podcasting doesn't, it's not technically public speaking, but it does feel like public speaking, especially after you hit the record button. Like I still get freaking jitters, right? And it's been over 2 years since we've been doing this, so I don't know if that ever goes away.
Well, and I had to jump out of that box around this time last year. Didn't have to. Was sort of guided to do it and was doing more Instagram lives and having fun conversations with friends and, a few other things. But then it's like, okay, well, we jumped out of that box. Everything's fine. Now let's go back to the cave. And I don't know.
Now you're here.
Yeah, doing it again.
Speaking of doing it again, what is your single greatest driving force in life, and how do you further?
Mm. So we'll just say besides gratitude, right?
Like it.
It's actually a fairly tough one for me.
Well, gratitude's a good answer. I don't know that we've had that as an answer before.
I mean, like I said, it's completely changed my life and my I don't know about outlook, but the way I view the world and everyone else.
It's done the same for me too. Like, I'd be a hypocrite if I didn't practice what I preached, and I try not to be.
Well, I definitely put meditation at a very high place on the list of things that drive me to keep going. But part of I guess where I'm at right now in my journey with the last couple years of soul searching, if you will. It's not a very accurate way to put it, but I was definitely on a spiritual journey inward, going in and really testing the metal. And I did it by going outside, getting into nature, and I lived out of my truck and would camp in national forests and Bureau of Land Management areas all over the West, and just really use the time to meditate. I spent hours a day meditating. Haven't missed a day in 3 or 4 years now. 3 years. I lost track of time. I was out there so long, and it was wonderful. I mean, I literally would just sit in a natural setting, but in a camp, meditate for hours a day, and from the outside, looked like I was doing nothing, right? But on the inside, I was busy, uh, with a lot of shadow work, a lot of reflection, realization, actualization, right? And it's one of the best things I've ever done. So I sort of lost the thread there, but it's meditation really is. I don't know if I recommend that path to anybody else, right? I mixed in solitude with shamanism to really dig in and heal some wounds. As part of the awakening process, had a spontaneous awakening after a near death experience, and kind of changed my outlook on a lot of stuff. But I had to basically relearn everything I thought I knew and how the universe operates, and you know where my place in it is. So I guess part of it is that through that process, and the longer I was out there, the less I needed and the less I desired. I mean, life itself is all the tropes, right? It's beautiful. It's a gift. There's miracles every day. And if you take the time to get that, basic and that centered on it, you can really see it. if you really do just sit back and observe. So I had, I've had it pretty easy. I don't have a lot of trials and strife, but this started coinciding with a breakup, and I had to move anyway. So I just ran with it, and yeah, I don't like chasing after money is the least of my priorities these days. I mean, you got to, obviously, but how I get my bread is not who I am. So, yeah.
Hell yeah. I mean, introspection, seeking meditation, the inward seeking to know thyself. I mean, that's a great, reason.
Well, not just know thyself, because I was pretty confident in knowing who I was before that, but like getting to know parts of you didn't know existed. As far as like that, you know, silver thread to God or whatever you want to call it. That there is this unseen field around us that affects physical reality, and if you spend the time, you can really get to know it, know how it works, manipulate the energies around you to your benefit, or to everyone's benefit for that matter. I think once you get yourself tuned in and in tune to different frequencies that exist all around us, you you can there's a lot of words I don't like to use. The language behind a lot of this new age and spiritual stuff is I don't even know how to put that without sounding bad. So it's just there's a lot of words I'm not a fan of, but your aura will then affect what the energy around you. So
Yeah, I love how you tie sitting in nature. Like it looks like you're not doing anything, but you're just spending your time to immerse yourself within the system and focus and not be distracted by other things. And yeah, that's something that, as we've moved away from a life of just living within nature, we really have kind of pulled ourselves from that experience. So we don't naturally learn because we're not seeing the reactions, seeing the environment, seeing the effects of our thoughts.
Well, and it really lets you, like I said, tune into these frequencies that, I mean, it's just like you read about, right? I mean, if you sit under a tree for a week, you can then start feeling the electromagnetic energies from the earth pass through you, up your spine, and into the tree. And that connection can really, I mean, talk about clear thought. When there's nothing else, no cars driving by, no dogs barking, and you get into that state, I don't know anything else like it. I've smoked a few things that got you close, but
Would it be like drinking silence? Would that be like a good analogy?
I mean, actually, this last year was a hunt for silence, because it is actually very hard to find, even way out in the boonies. A plane will fly over, or there's a lot of roads going everywhere these days. But those, even in those roadless areas, there's true silence is not really existent in nature. So, but there is a lack of noise. energetic, you know, like the full spectrum.
Right? I had never really like. Okay, it gets super quiet and silent up here in the winter up north when it's cold and all the animals go away sometimes.
Mm.
Right? And it's eerie. It's just it is a little eerie with the lack when there's a lack of noise. But yeah, I mean even then though, you still can hear like your blood pumping through your ears or whatever, but
Mhm.
there really
I mean,
isn't.
that's when you know it's getting quiet, right? You start noticing uh, little things like your carotid artery chugging. Um, but yeah, I thought I found a spot in Nevada, and it was great, like way out in the middle of nowhere. And I've been sitting there most of the day, this close as we've found. Right, I did 40 or 50,000 miles in the last couple of years, um, and just then I didn't even see it because it was going so fast. But a fighter jet at like 1,000 feet off the deck, right? And I felt it and then registered the sound. And oh, right when I thought I found it, the universe was like, not it, not the spot. So, yeah.
That is one of my favorite feelings, being close to full bore jet engines or even better afterburners.
Yeah, I don't know how fast that guy was going, but I barely saw it, you know, and it was 20 miles behind me by the time I turned around and saw it. So
Who were / are your role models and why?
hmm. Were definitely, I could say, I could name a lot of authors who, not because of what they wrote, but how they lived to get the stories they wrote about. Um, Hemingway and Hunter S. Thompson. And I will say those were role models because uh, I don't party like that anymore, I guess. And I don't know if they were great role models. Geniuses for sure. I mean, reading how Hemingway lived, talk about what it means to be a man now. There's nothing whatever that is not like what it was when he was coming up, right? Um, there'll be similarities, but as a journalist covering a civil war in Spain and then saying screw it and picking up a rifle, like, you know. Anyway, I don't know if that they are role models these days. Um,
Well, incredibly talented, like you said, but it takes a certain type of mind with a certain flavor sometimes to do that stuff. So,
well, they lived
tied
they lived
together.
fast and experienced life in a very raw and gritty form, which I still admire that. As a trait, if you have the courage to do that, right? But I did. I used to drink whiskey like it was a job, and like to think I was a pretty good drunk, and I did a lot of crazy stuff and took chances. It was fun. I don't regret any of it, but I gave up drinking. Um, and like I said, meditation is actually my favorite thing to do these days. Bill and I were joking about that on the phone the other day. Like, you you can go anywhere you want. It's sitting quietly by yourself in your own energy. I mean, especially today with technology and everything, it's a gift. So, um, role models these days. don't know. The older I get, the more I admire my grandfathers too. You know, when they came up, the struggles they went through. Grateful that I'm not having to do the same. Uh, you know, with dust bowls and world wars.
Oh my God, no matter where you're at, when it got, cold out, you had to chop the wood. You had to keep it warm. You had to light the fire. There was no air conditioning. There was no freezer. There was make ice and put it in a box. Like life was very different, and that was an easy life to the one that came before them. So,
it's funny you said that, because before I went on the road, the previous 7 years, I was remodeling an old house, 100-year-old house, and building a homestead. And for some reason, refused to put in air conditioning and fix the furnace, and we just had a wood stove. And it was a very old, the place wasn't off the grid by any means, but I just chose to heat with wood. And if you understand how airflow works, you can get the right windows open and fans blowing, and it's really only uncomfortable for 2 hours a day when you're probably not inside anyway on a farm. So it really worked out, and I liked the simplicity of it's not the lifestyle, but I mean, I've never been in better shape than when I was going and collecting and bucking and splitting firewood every day.
What do you think about the notion of using your future self as a role model?
Oh, I love my future self, dude. He's knocking it out of the park, right? Like, we're doing great. um, I've worked with that idea a lot, and in the idea that if the mantra that you're always divinely guided and protected, or on your highest timeline, whatever language you want to use behind that, but just knowing that your future self has already done it. It's already happened. It's already done. And, it turned out great. Just knowing that adds a little bit of zip to your step, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of almost like
I mean, it falls back to trusting yourself, right? Like, everybody makes mistakes. So just take that for what it is. Everyone makes mistakes. Why are you getting so worked up about making mistakes?
right. It kind of speaks to like a tenacity and like steadfastness.
Mm,
Like if you know, like there is some version, like some reality out there, some timeline, right, where that you've attained the highest, most possible, perfect, whatever, right, and that it exists and you get there, but you gotta take it one day at a time.
well, that's the best part, right? I mean, we're sort of figuring out via a bunch of smart dudes and physicists and all those people. I don't pay attention too much, but all that exists. Like, every possible reality already exists simultaneously to the one your soul is experiencing now. So I mean, you can jump around, you can do different things, start new timelines whenever you want. It's great. Now that we're getting language behind it and protocols, I mean, there are people out there doing that kind of work and assisting people with collapsing a timeline and getting on their optimum timeline, whatever their heart and soul desires. It's pretty fun. Start messing around with those ideas.
Right, and it kind of goes into the whole quote unquote past life thing, where it's not
Mm.
really in the
It's I mean, it's a great way to look at it, past life, but their names are escaping me. I was listening to a couple of gals talking about this on YouTube. Oh, right after I left Michigan, and so it was like April. And the whole idea that the simulation theories and all of that, it sort of is like, in my head anyway, like the holodeck. Like we've all wanted to live, in time periods, and yeah, that's why when people do those past life regressions, and there's a shitload of people who've been Cleopatra, right? And I think it's like, yeah, they experienced that. Yeah, my turn. So I don't. That's getting out there, right? With what reality is and how it operates, but it might be just like that.
right. That's
I've done a lot of my own regression work, and it's fascinating when you start getting there, and because there are wounds to heal, so to speak, right? Generational trauma is a thing, and I well, Janine, got a reading, an astrological reading for sidereal, real sky astronomy, and we started exploring past lives, if that is kind of the easiest way to talk about it. And finding where your current wounds can correlate in a past life and healing those simultaneously, so they are healed and moved through, and that energy doesn't weigh you down anymore. Then if you want to get real weird, you can explore, journey into that space a little more, and those aspects of that, whatever was happening in that experience, that existence, kind of that aspect of that life can strengthen how you walk your path now. That's what I've experienced with it anyway.
yeah, the opportunity for generational healing is super interesting to me. When we get back into the regression, self-regression or testing, or
yeah, the DNA's got a memory for sure, right? So I mean, that's
Oh yeah. Every time there's an airplane or a helicopter shadow, if you feel the need to duck, it's like that is danger. And it's been a long time since something has been swooping and taking us out from the sky. So yeah, experience can carry for a very long time.
Yeah.
And you still experience them.
Mm-hmm. And getting like I said, getting those aspects of your life to come back into your essence, right? It's like putting puzzle pieces back together on your soul essence or aura.
like reinforcements almost.
Mm-hmm.
What is the most courageous thing you have ever done or seen in your life?
Great. I mean, I've seen some guys do some crazy stuff with whitewater rafts and rapids, but I don't like the guys who work wildfires, especially the ones who parachute in on the smoke jumpers. That's, courage under pressure and pain of death for sure, right?
And going up against one of the most formidable forces, like nature.
Mm. Yeah. And I mean, and the fire element, the most unpredictable, right, of all of them. But really, I've seen a lot of courage, examples of it in with that life in the outdoors. I worked at a place and we packed 20 miles upriver, packed because there is no road past where you unload the mules, and it was an outfit that we did a luxury fishing camp that traveled, and it was limited to only 8 guests, but it took 20 people and over you know 35-40 head of stock to get all that gear 20 miles upriver so that we can float out for a week. So I mean, we packed rafts on the mules and went upriver. And in that, every day somebody had to muscle up the courage to go do something they really didn't want to do, whether it was catch a wild horse or, I mean, bears in camp were often. So it's interesting, courageous stuff. Like, I don't know if we're in charge of that one necessarily. Like, you can, something needs to be done. Oftentimes you just do it. It's instinct more than thought out.
Right? It's still like acting. It's having the ability to act even though you're afraid or something.
Yeah.
You gotta do the thing because it has to be done. Otherwise, there are consequences that you want to avoid.
I mean, I've been standing on the beach, and we had pulled the raft up on the beach, and crazy windstorm out of nowhere just came up, heavy enough that it kind of lifted the raft a little ways off the off the rocks, and it just floated itself right back into the river and started going downstream. Well, me and the 2 guys I was fishing with were standing there going, well, shit, right? They're paying clients. I'm going for a swim in May in the Northern Rockies in a swift river, right? But somebody had to go, and if we didn't do it, we were walking a long ways, right? So is that courageous? I don't know. It needed to be done.
All right, that brings us to what is now the capstone question. After a few revisions and iterations in the order of the fabled 13, is if you could give one sentence of advice to the future generations, what would it be?
Jesus, that's a good one.
It's actually a new one. I don't know if we had this one on your first one.
I don't think we did. No,
Yeah, I've never.
it's a surprise question.
Man, lately when I feel like I need to give advice, I just have been shutting up and taking it, whatever advice that is. Do I need to do more of that? It's tough. I've spent. My brother has a couple of kids, sons, and one just went to college. One is in high school. They're both brilliant, and excel in what they're doing. Seem like they're doing it a lot easier than I did. And I'm trying to think of, be the good uncle, pass on the wisdom and all of that. But the more I just sat there and listened to them, I was like, shit, these kids are going to be fine, right? They got some shit figured out. I guess, be brave is always, take the risk. But yeah, I think we're moving at such a rate that things change so fast these days. And I don't know how you guys have been looking at it, but now that I'm out of the woods, I've kind of got plugged back into current events, which I normally try to avoid at all costs. But
Machine time.
yeah, shit is getting weird out there, eh? Right? I don't think it's going to get any less weird anytime soon. So,
Yeah, pay attention to your surroundings. Just don't drown in them.
Yeah. I mean, the movie called Life is getting interesting, right? I'm just ready to sit back and watch. So, somebody pass the popcorn.
Yeah. Kettle corn, preferably.
Yeah, that is one way that I actually bring my own view of levity to the world, is that you could not make up the world that we're living in. It is a movie. It is the most fantastical movie, and as horrible as it is, do exactly that. Just sit back and find the humor and the absurdity.
I mean, it really is a tragic divine comedy, right? God's the biggest comedian of them all, as it turns out, which is even more beautiful. And well, I mean, I had an NDE, if that's what a near death experience, and remember a lot of the other side. If that's, I mean, just it's not the other side. That's the thing, is it is just all around us all the time, and we don't have the capability of perceiving it as much, which I think we do. It's latent within all of us, and it just takes practice. So like like your buddy Derek Condit, which I did listen to that interview. That was fun. He and I see energy a lot the same way. Not 100%. I'm looking forward to talking to him, but all of the the unseen. I mean, a lot of people say it's the other, or the other side, through the veil, whatever. It's not at all other. It's all very normal, and it's just you need to develop through practice the ability to perceive it.
It's almost as if it seems like the people that are alive, like us right now, listening to this podcast, having a conversation or whatever, like we're the dead ones because we're limited in our perception. It's almost like whoever's on the other side is more open, has more information available to them. And like we're kind of like limited here.
Yeah, they're vibrating at a frequency that is, I mean, shit. There's a lot of things humans can't hear, like a dog whistle or something like that, So there's a lot we can't perceive.
Right. And all
light spectrum and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yep. It's all on continuum.
That doesn't even get interdimensional. I don't know about that. I know a little bit.
It's one of the beautiful things about spending the time in nature, is because you can really utilize other creatures as a tool for you. Because if you start listening and understanding and hearing their reactions and their cues, and they have the senses, they can see the magnetism or the colors or the other creatures, the wind. And then it's beautiful because you have those things in your belt. And it's just those subtle perceptions that we lose when we pull ourselves out of nature.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. But, it's extrasensory perception, I guess, is what most people call it, right? ESP, but it's not extra. It's all there.
And some of it is so basic. Like one of my favorites for me, it's like I know when there's a hawk in the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell. Why? Because I know how the birds act. I know how they talk to each other. They warn each other.
Mm-hmm.
Listening.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, and if you can find that frequency, right, in meditation, I've found, if granted, I did it a lot. I immersed myself in it, which is generally how I do things. If I get interested in it, that's all I do until I get bored. But this never got boring because it was, I figured out how to manipulate that frequency, and you can tune into other channels. I mean, as
Mm-hmm.
that's what channeling is, right? So there's more than the flow state out there to tune into. There's a wide range.
Lots of programming available for your selection.
And it's deprogramming at the same time, right?
Right.
It really can influence your belief system and how you interact. Animism is a deep subject, goes a long ways, and when you start perceiving what is normally unseen, it brightens things up. So,
well, I have certainly enjoyed this conversation. It's brightened my day. It's a perfect way to start a new year. It is the solstice when we're recording this, after all. So, yeah, time, interdimensionality. These are topics that we could go on and on about for another podcast, possibly. But
well, I mean, it's eternal, right? So it's hard to know where to draw that line.
it's tricky. Time. It's a fourth dimension, really, I think. More like it. But yeah, thank you, Ben, for spending some time with us on a very special Solstice Day. So happy solstice. And Adam, did you have any closing thoughts?
No. Just as we entered, time, it's the most valuable thing, and we're eternally grateful.
I don't want no Hawaii. I don't want no Hawaii. Yo, what? I don't want no Hawaii. I don't want no Hawaii. Yo, what? I don't want no Hawaii. I don't want no Hawaii. Yo, what? I don't want no Hawaii. I don't want no Hawaii. Yo, what? I don't want no Hawaii. I don't want no Hawaii. Yo, what? I don't want no Hawaii. I don't want no Hawaii. Yo, what?
Why is one man rich and another man poor? Why we ain't satisfied? Why we gotta have more? Why your suicide rates on the rest so high? Why I tell you the truth but you say don't lie? Why is being a good father at an all-time low? Why is it acceptable? Yo, why? I don't know. Why she blame him and he blame her? It's useless. Ask yourself this question. Why you making excuses? Why do parents gotta bury their kids? Why we text and drive, not caring how scary it is? Why it's so hard to forgive and leave the past behind? And if you did, then that's divine. Why don't you help your brother when you see him fall? Why do we act like God don't see it all? Why do we call them black, them white, them Asians and use labels? Now that's racism.
I don't want no Hawaii.
Why?
I don't want no Hawaii. Yo, why? I don't want no Hawaii.
Why?
I don't want no Hawaii. Yo, why? I don't want no Hawaii.
Why?
I don't want no Hawaii. Yo, why? I don't want no Hawaii.
Why?
I don't want no Hawaii. Yo,
Why is
why?
there innocent people locked up for life, while some people can't say nothing nice? Why do we always gotta question what all of it means? And why won't you follow your dreams? Tell me why. The night when you took my dad, why'd you let me see my grandpa cry? And tell me why. And why do you choose to hide, even though you was born to fly? And tell me why? And why don't we turn from all the hate? And why don't we learn from all mistakes? Why do I keep on wrecking these fat beats? And teachers don't make more than professional athletes. And why? And why? And why? And why? And why? And why?
I don't wanna away night. I don't wanna away night. No why? I don't wanna away night. I don't wanna away night. No why? I don't wanna away night. I don't wanna away night. No why? I don't wanna away night. I don't wanna away night. No why?
This should be considered entertainment and not therapy. We hope you benefit from our resources available at 13questionspodcast.com. Thank you for listening.